Have you ever heard whispers from the deep woods? Stories that make the hair on your arms stand up. Today, we're venturing into one such tale. A chilling account from the pioneer days, when the forests were vast, uncharted, and held secrets far darker than just shadows. This isn't just a campfire story. It's a piece of history steeped in terror. A chronicle of an encounter with something that shouldn't exist. So, dim the lights, get comfortable, and prepare to journey back in time with me, to an era when humanity's footprint was small, and the wilderness reigned supreme. This is the story of a frontier settlement, a brave group of pioneers, and the one-eyed horror that haunted their every step. Our story begins in the raw, untamed wilderness of early America. A small, tight-knit community of pioneers had carved out a life for themselves at the edge of an immense, ancient forest. They were hardy folk, accustomed to the challenges of frontier life, harsh winters, scarce resources, and the constant threat of wild animals. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared them for the nightmare that was about to unfold. It started subtly, with an unsettling feeling, a sense of being watched from the dense tree. Livestock would vanish without a trace, leaving behind only an eerie silence. At first, they blamed wolves or bears, but the disappearances were too clean, too quiet. The usual signs of a predator attack were missing. There were no blood trails, no scattered remains, just an empty space where a goat or a pig used to be. A palpable fear began to creep into the settlement, a dread that clung to the air like the morning mist. The forest they had once seen as a source of life and sustenance was slowly transforming into a source of unspeakable terror. They didn't know it yet, but they had attracted the attention of something ancient and malevolent. A creature whose hunger was as insatiable as the forest was deep, the quiet before the storm was about to break. One evening, a young man who had ventured just a little too far into the woods to check his traps did not return. A search party was organized at dawn. They followed his trail, their hearts pounding with every snapped twig. What they found would forever be seared into their collective memory. They discovered his body, not mauled as if by a bear, but mutilated in a way that defied all natural explanation. Specifically, his heart and liver were gone, consumed. The sheer brutality of it was shocking, but the precision was what was truly terrifying. This was no ordinary animal. Panic gripped the village. Who, or what, could do such a thing? And this was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, the nightmare repeated itself. More settlers, brave men and women who dared to wander too close to the forest's edge, met the same gruesome fate. Each time, the victim was found with their chest torn apart, their heart and liver devoured. They were trapped, living on a knife's edge, knowing that the very woods that surrounded their homes held a deadly secret, a hunter that saw them not as people, but as prey. Amidst the terror, there was one survivor, a hunter who had a near-fatal encounter with the creature and lived to tell the tale. He stumbled back into the settlement, pale and trembling, his eyes wide with a horror that words could barely capture. His account was the first and only description they had of the monster. He said it was vaguely human-like in Sape walking on two legs. But that's where the similarity ended. Its body was covered not with fur, but with a thick, coarse mat of dark hair. Its mouth was a cavern of jagged, needle-sharp teeth, capable of tearing flesh from bone with ease. But the most terrifying feature, the one that haunted the hunter's waking moments and tormented his sleep, was its eye. It didn't have two eyes. In the center of its forehead, a single, large, unblinking eye stared out with cold, malevolent intelligence. This wasn't a beast acting on instinct. This was a demon, a monster from the deepest pits of hell, now stalking their woods. The description spread like wildfire, and the creature was given a name whispered in fear, the one-eyed demon of the forest. The community now knew what they were facing, and the knowledge was far more terrifying than the mystery had ever been. Desperation breeds courage. The settlers knew they couldn't run. There was nowhere to go. Their only option was to fight, to hunt the hunter. The village elders and the strongest hunters gathered in secret, hatching a desperate, audacious plan. They decided they couldn't kill it in the open forest. It was the creature's domain, and it had the advantage. They had to lure it into a trap. They chose a clearing near the edge of the woods and began their work under the cover of darkness. They dug a massive pit, deep and wide, covering it with a fragile lattice of branches and leaves, perfectly camouflaged to look like solid ground. This was their only shot. To bait the trap, they would need to offer it what it craved. A brave, albeit terrified. Balanta was chosen to act as the lure, his task to draw the demon towards the hidden pit. The entire village held its breath. It was a gamble with the highest possible stakes. Their very survival. They were no longer the prey. They were setting a trap for the devil itself, and they prayed it would be enough. The night of the hunt arrived, cold and unnervously still. The plan was set in motion. The volunteer, armed with a torch and his own courage, moved towards the forest, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. Ekadet, his voice echoing unnaturally in the silent woods, a lonely beacon in the oppressive dark. As he neared the camouflaged pit, a shape detached itself from the shadows of the trees. It was the demon, taller than a man. Its grotesque form was even more horrifying in person. It moved with a horrifying speed, its hairy, toad-skinned body a blur of motion as it charged towards its intended meal. The volunteer scrambled back, just as planned. The demon, fixated on its prey, didn't see the trap. With a thunderous crash of splintering wood and a terrifying roar of surprise and rage, the monster plunged into the pit. The trap had worked. But the fight was far from over. The villagers, who had been hiding in wait, swarmed the pit. They didn't hesitate. They threw down burning torches, pitchforks, and heavy stones. It was a scene from a nightmare. The firelight, casting, dancing, demonic shadows against the trees, as the pioneers fought for their lives against the trapped beast. In the chaotic frenzy of the attack, one of the hunters, a man whose brother had been one of the first victims, saw an opportunity for vengeance. With a cry of rage, he leaped to the edge of the pit, armed with a long, sharpened pole. He ignored the gnashing teeth and the flailing limbs, his eyes fixed on the creature's single, glaring eye. With all his strength, he thrust the pole downwards. There was a sickening squelch, and a shriek of unimaginable pain echoed through the forest, a sound so inhuman it chilled the very souls of the villagers. The hunter had succeeded. He had blinded the demon. The creature, now sightless and in agony, writhed in the pit. Its movements becoming more frantic, more desperate. The villagers saw their chance. They hurled more and more burning material into the pit, determined to incinerate the monster, to erase it from existence. The pit became an inferno. The smell of burning hair and something else, something utterly alien, filled the night air. The pioneers watched, exhausted but resolute, as the flames consumed their tormentor. But evil is not so easily vanquished. As the flames in the pit began to die down, the villagers watched, waiting for the certainty of their victory. They expected to find nothing but ash and charred bone. But through the smoke and dying embers, a horrifying sight met their eyes. The creature, horribly burned, its skin blackened and peeling, its one eye socket a weeping, cauterized wound began to move. It was impossibly, terrifyingly, still alive, with a final, guttural roar that was part pain and part pure hatred. The blinded demon clawed its way up the side of the pit. Its strength was monstrous. Even on the brink of death, it scrambled over the edge, a vision of scorched flesh and raw fury. The villagers fell back in shock and terror. They had thrown everything they had at it. They had blinded it and burned it, yet it endured. The demon didn't attack. Perhaps it couldn't, or perhaps its only thought was escape. It staggered, then lurched into the darkness of the deep forest, vanishing back into the shadows from whence it came. An eerie silence descended once more, but this time it was filled not with victory, but with the chilling realization that the monster was still out there. In the days and weeks that followed, the settlement lived in a state of constant, heightened fear. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Every sound in the night was a potential return of the demon, but it never came back. The attacks stopped. The disappearances ceased. The one-eyed demon, blinded and horribly burned, never showed itself to the community again. Did it finally succumb to its wounds, dying alone in the dark depths of the forest? Or did it simply retreat, nursing its wounds and its hatred, waiting in the darkness for a future time? No one ever knew for sure. The The story, however, was never forgotten. It was passed down from generation to generation, a grim bedtime story for the children, a chilling legend for the adults. It became a permanent part of the local folklore, a stark and terrifying reminder that the world is full of mysteries, and that some corners of the wilderness are best left undisturbed. The forest remained as beautiful and imposing as ever. But for those who knew the story, its shadows would forever hold the memory of a single, malevolent eye. So, what do we make of this terrifying piece of frontier folklore? Was it simply a tall tale, born from the very real fears of living in an untamed and dangerous land? A way to personify the hardships and the unknown threats of the wilderness? Or could there be a sliver of truth to it? The description of the creature is bizarre, unlike any known animal. A hairy, toad-skinned biped with a single eye and a taste for human organs. It sounds like something straight out of mythology. Yet, stories of similar wild men or forest demons exist in cultures all over the world. Could these pioneers have encountered something truly unknown to science? A remnant of a species that hides in the deepest, most remote parts of our world? Perhaps the story is an allegory, a symbol of the pioneer's struggle against the brutal, unforgiving nature of the frontier. The demon represents the wild itself, savage, unpredictable, and ultimately unconquerable. They could wound it, they could drive it back, but they could never truly destroy it. Whatever the truth may be, the tale of the one-eyed demon serves as a powerful and chilling reminder of a time when the line between our world and the world of monsters felt terrifyingly thin. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the dark woods. Stay safe, and perhaps think twice the next time you hear a strange sound coming from the trees.